New River community did not have a school building as such. They held school in their church building, the New River Church of Christ. It is known that school was held at New River from 1899 to 1923. It is probable that school could have been held earlier than 1899 since the New River Church of Christ was started in 1886. The New River Church of Christ has since been rebuilt, but it is still at the same location as the first church and school. Thomas Harbin was a teacher at New River in 1899. There were 40 pupils that year in grades 1 through 7. Wilbur Haley was the teacher in 1910. Some of the other known teachers at New River were Ruth McCaleb and Eunice McCaleb. When New River School was closed because of its consolidation with other schools to form Hubbertville School, there was no bridge to cross the river for the students from the New River community. These students had to walk to Hubbertville School in the early years. Students had to cross the river in a small boat. They would tie up the boat until they came back in the late afternoon on their return trip home. Hickory Rock School, which was located in the area of Sand Springs Church, was an unpainted, one-room frame building constructed with boards and batten. The boards and batten went up and down, and a strip was placed over the seams joining two boards to keep the cracks from showing. The school building was not sealed inside. Planks were just laid up here and there for a ceiling in the top of the building, but it was not sealed completely. Long wooden benches made with pegs for standards were used to seat the students. The building had a belfry close to the front and a chimney near the middle of the room. The school was named for a petrified rock, which was found in the area near where the school was built. A hickory tree had fallen and had turned to rock. This was amazing to many people that a tree could turn to rock, and it was significant enough to cause the people of this area to name their school for a petrified tree. A piece of this petrified tree is housed in the Hubbertville School Library today as a part of the history of the community. Some of the teachers at Hickory Rock School were Raymond Hinton, Oscar Smith, Fred Wycroft, Hazy Ayers, Lester Davis, Sally Holliday, Seti Weathers, Mrs. Upton Shaw, Ida Rye, Jesse Reeves, Doris Griffin, Maddie Dowell, and Mrs. Allen.
About 1/4 mile just past the home of Dewey Hubbard. The school, which served grades 1 through 7, was also called Frog Heaven. Many of the early schools in this area just went to the 5th or 6th grade, but Hubbard School went to the 7th grade. The people who were leaders in getting the school started were Bud Hollingsworth, John Hubbard, Belton Hubbard, Eckford Hubbard, and Dewey Hubbard. Community members made up money to construct the building. Timber was cut, carried to the sawmill, sawed, and then used to build the school. The outside of the building was made from weatherboarding, which ran horizontal. The roof was covered with homemade board shingles, and it also housed a belfry. The inside of the building was sealed with tongue-and-grooved center-matched lumber. A big place was marked off at the front of the classroom and painted black to make a blackboard. After the lumber dried out, there were cracks in the blackboard, and the teacher and students had to skip over the cracks with their chalk. Students sat on wooden benches made from 2x12s. The teacher's desk was a wooden table. A stove was used to heat the room during the winter. Parents cut and supplied the wood. The older boys would go out and gather up the pine knots, and the fire began to get low to supplement the wood supplied by their parents. School hours were about the same as today, starting around 8 and returning at 3. Since Hubbard School had a belfry, the teacher would ring the bell about 5 minutes before the class was to start. The bell was loud and could be heard for miles. It was rung for the beginning of school, recess, lunch, and at the end of the school day. There were about 40 to 45 students who attended Hubbard School. Parents had to go to the bookstore to purchase textbooks. A report card was given to each student at the end of the school year showing if the student had completed a grade or if he had passed or failed. Many students often stayed in the same grade for several years until they mastered the material. Lunch usually consisted of biscuits and sausage or ham, baked sweet potatoes, and fried pies. Since several members of a family went to school, lunch was usually packed in a gallon bucket as there were no paper bags or newspapers in which to pack or wrap lunches.
The Pleasant View School was also known as Jones School because it was built on John Jones's land. It was a one-room frame building, and and it was located about a quarter mile off Highway 129 across the road in front of Thomas Hollingsworth's house. School was held at Pleasant View from 1911 or 1912 until 1923, when it was consolidated with other one-room schools to form Hubbertville School. The school building had closets all the way down each side of the building. The closets came out far enough to make an open front porch. The building had 2 front doors and 1 side door. It also had a stage. The History of Fayette County, Alabama, compiled and edited by Mr. and Miss Herbert Moses Newell, Jr., probably referred to Pleasant View School as the Jones School since Pleasant View was built on John Jones's land. There were no school buses at that time, and students had to walk to school. A hand pump well was located near Studhorse Creek where the students had to go to get water. This was only a short distance from the school. Drinking water had to be brought to the school in a bucket, and the students shared a dipper from which to drink. Some of the teachers at Pleasant View were Raymond Hitton, Burgess Anthony, Maddie Ezel, Lois Wilson, Tolbert Wakefield, Vera Wakefield, Oscar Smith, Lonnie Smith, and Myrtle Heron. Myrtle Heron began her teaching career at Pleasant View School in 1917. She had 80 pupils that year, ranging from 1st grade to the 7th grade. Many of her pupils were as old as she was. The main subjects taught were reading, writing, and arithmetic. However, they also had history, English, and penmanship. School hours were from 8 until 4. One project conducted by our students was to raise money to purchase an unabridged dictionary from the school. They purchased a pig which they fed with scraps from the lunch pails of the students. When the pig became fat, it was sold to C.M. Hubbard. The money was used to purchase the dictionary, which was the first reference book for the students in the Hubbertville community. Among activities of the school were box suppers, which were held to raise money for the school. Many plays also were held at the school. Students played basketball down in the pasture. They also played town ball, which was similar to baseball.
Hubbertville School is a K-12 grade school located in the northern part of Fayette County on Highway 129 near the Sipsey River. It had its beginning in 1923 when 4 local one-room schools, New River, Hickory Rock, Pleasant View, and Hubbert School, were consolidated. Original plans called for a 3-room building. It was to serve grades 1 through 9. The Fayette County Board of Education decided that this school should be a state aid building, and they agreed to give Enterprise $100 to each room. The people in the community gave donations to pay the remaining costs of the building, and they donated labor to construct it. When school opened on October 8, 1923, enrollment was more than expected, and the citizens of the community donated the money and labor to add 2 more rooms to the original plans, thus making a 5-room school. That year, school was held for 5 months. The school was named in honor of the family of Mr. and Mrs. C.M. Hubbard, who deeded 5 acres of land to the state of Alabama for the beginning of the school in 1923. Around the year of 1935, they also deeded 10 more acres of land to the school as it was enjoying steady growth. Miss Edrel Hubbard McCaleb, the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. C.M. Hubbard, also donated land to the school when the Wiley Hollingsworth Gymnasium was erected in 1966 to 1967. 3 more acres were purchased from Mrs. McCaleb in 1970. Her son, Hubbard Stephen McCaleb, also donated 3 acres of land to the school in 1984, thus making a total of 21 acres, more or less, in the school campus. Mr. C.M. Hubbard was a member of the Fayette County Board of Education at the time the 4 schools were consolidated to form Hubbertville. He played an important part in the formation of the school. Another local citizen, Mr. Houston Haney, was instrumental in bringing out the consolidation of the 4 schools. He met with trustees from each of the one-room schools and visited families in the area, convincing them that it would be more economical to build and maintain one large school rather than several small ones. He was successful in his efforts to convince trustees to build Hubbertville School. The school was built on a hill across from Mr. C.M. Hubbard's store. The local citizens of Hubbertville School community have always been education-minded, believing that their children would have the opportunity to receive the best education possible. Their dream was to provide a school which would enable their children to obtain a high school education without leaving home to board in some other town. Local citizens went to work and succeeded in making their dream a reality. They became the backbone of the school and played a major role in its progress and success.
12 different principals have provided leadership for the growth and progress of Hubbertville School. They include the following: L.G. Cantrell, 1923 through 1925, E.C. Herron, 1925 through 1927, Clifton M. Kuykendall, 1927 through 1928, Hollis Hitton, 1928 through 1929, John Holloman, 1929 through 1930. When Wiley Hollingsworth became principal of Hubbertville School in 1930, one of his first goals was to make it a high school. He drew in students from adjoining communities and increased enrollment. Grade 10 was added in 1933 and 1934, grade 11 in 1934 and 1935, and grade 12 in 1935. Hubbertville had 6 teachers and 152 students in 1930. By 1935, enrollment had increased to 340 students, and the school had 12 teachers. In the first few years of the school, teachers were elected by popular vote, and many teachers only stayed at the school for a short time. In 1930, a board of trustees was set up, and they selected the teachers. Intermingled with the growth and progress of the school were 2 major tragedies. Fire claimed 2 different school buildings at Hubbertville within a 5-year period. These tragedies seemed to bring community members closer together and make them more determined than ever to provide better school facilities for their children. On April 10, 1934, strong winds blew sparks onto the roof of the school from the river bottoms nearby where brush was being burned. The roof of the school was covered with wood shingles, which had been oiled to preserve them. Attempts to extinguish the fire were made by Chester Jones and others who were at the Hubbard Cotton Gin, which was located near the school. However, they were unable to save the building, and it was destroyed in only a short time. A second school building was constructed by the Hubbertville community during the summer of 1934. The school had fire insurance on the first building, from which $5,100 was collected. This money was used to purchase attractive timber that was cut and sawed. The people of the community provided free labor to build an 11-room white frame building. The only paid help was the foreman, Wiley Faulkner, who was paid $5 a day for 51 days, and a brick mason who was paid for 7 days. The CWA and the ARA furnished 300 days of labor. The remainder of the labor was free of cost and donated by the men of the community. Over $3,000 was raised by the community during the time that our country was in a period of depression. The new $10,000 school building bore evidence of the spirit of cooperation among the citizens of the school community. Just shortly after the completion of the new school building, Hubbertville applied for the accreditation by the state of Alabama. 1 more room was needed in order to meet accreditation standards. Mr. Vester Hollingsworth, a teacher, helped to get the construction started. A contest drive was started between the community members on the east side of the river and those on the west. Again, the community responded. Leaders went from house to house to raise money. Since most people did not have money, citizens rounded up calves, chased down chickens, shelled corn, and gave items such as quilts, milk, butter, eggs, molasses, or whatever they had to sell in order to contribute money for the schoolroom. Thus, Hubbertville had its 12-room school. This enabled the school to become accredited by the state of Alabama in December of 1935. The county board gave its support in helping Hubbertville become accredited by providing the funds needed for purchasing books for the library and equipment for the science laboratory. This was the beginning of the first real library and science laboratory at Hubbertville, as the previous ones had been meager. The high school has remained accredited by the state of Alabama since 1935.
The second school building at Hubbertville was destined for a short life, as it too went up in flames, with all its contents, including the books of about 500 students on Friday morning, October 6, 1939. The flames were discovered about 7 a.m. in a vacant room. Heroic work of citizens and students who had begun to arrive on school buses could not extinguish the blaze, and once again the school burned to the ground. Miss Ruth Perry, a teacher at Hubbertville at the time, had luckily arrived at the school on the tragic morning ahead of her principal. Through some extraordinary effort, which she was unable to explain, Miss Perry managed to drag a 4-drawer file cabinet from the burning building, thus saving the students' records from the fire. Some football material was also saved. For the third time, the people in the community went to work to build another school building. Under the leadership of Bruce Harkins, Fayette County Superintendent of Education, and with the cooperation of the Fayette County Board of Education, a modern design split-level brick structure was erected during 1940 through 1941. This building, which still stands today, was the most modern school building in Fayette County at the time. A large portion of the funds needed to build this school came from a WPA federal grant. With the help of Fayette County Probate Judge J.M. Moore and Chester Jones, Hubbertville School Board member Principal Wiley Hollingsworth made a joint application with the Fayette County Board of Education through the U.S. Senator from Mississippi for a WPA grant. Circumstances were favorable, and the school received a WPA grant for more than $46,000. In their November 1939 meeting, the Fayette County Board of Education expressed their responsibility in helping to rebuild a school at Hubbertville. The County of Fayette issued a sale of $50,000 capital outlay warranties for this purpose. The families of the community also provided cooperation in rebuilding the school. Each teacher at Hubbertville at the time made a cash donation in an effort to provide financial help towards completion of the school. Mr. C. M. Hubbard matched the money donated by the facility. He also paid for some of the labor for the digging of ditches and drain lines. About 40 community residents worked for 50 cents a day to help rebuild the school. Attempts were made to relocate the school on another site when the second school building burned, but it was decided to rebuild in the same location. It took 2 years to complete the building of the present school. Mr. Early C. Wilson served as supervisor of construction over the entire job of rebuilding the school, and Robert T. Black from Fayette served as foreman over the WPA construction group. Dan Burns did the plumbing. Vaughn McCaleb, one of the workers, drove a truck to Birmingham and hauled the oak lumber used to floor the school building. He and Grady Hubbard, another worker, were the only two who had enough nerve to put up the steel beams that were used in the school auditorium. During the 2 years required to build the third school, elementary classes were held in local homes and churches. High school students attended classes in the new school buses that the county had purchased in the same year of 1939. Butane gas heaters were installed in these buses to provide heat during the winter. Fayette County had purchased 40 school buses in 1939 and was truly a pioneer in the operation of county-owned school buses. Only one other country in the United States, and that was in California, had purchased the same number of buses owned by the county for transportation of school children at the time. School officials came from everywhere to see Fayette County's system of transportation for school children. Wiley Hollingsworth was responsible for establishing the first athletic department at Hubbertville. L.E. Hutchison was the first football coach. Mr. Hutchison said that none of the boys had ever played football before. They played in C.M. Hubbard's cow pasture. Basketball had also been a favorite sport at Hubbertville. During early years, the students played in outdoor basketball courts. Old pictures of basketball teams in the early history of the school show the outdoor basketball goal post and other outdoor restrooms. Indoor basketball and indoor restrooms were not available at Hubbertville School until the third school building was erected. The following Hubbertville athletic teams have won 1A state tournaments: 1948 boys basketball, 1980 girls basketball, 1989 girls basketball, 1989 girls softball, 1990 girls softball, and 1991 girls softball. Additional buildings have been constructed at Hubbertville School in order to improve the school program. In 1950, a separate vocational agricultural shop and classroom were constructed. In 1959, Mary Hubbard Hall was constructed to be used at the discretion of the school administration for a health center. For social events and school activities, Maxine Rutledge, Eldrill McCaleb, and Carrie McCaleb were instrumental in getting Mary Hubbard Hall constructed. A football stadium was started in 1948.
Hubbertville School has been fortunate to have two long-term principals. In addition to Rufus Wiley Hollingsworth, who served 33 years as principal from 1930 to 1963, Caldwell Hollingsworth, a teacher and coach at Hubbertville, served as principal of Hubbertville School for 27 years from 1963 to 1990. Caldwell Hollingsworth, a 1949 graduate of Hubbertville, also worked to make improvements to the school, including the upgrading of the football stadium with new concrete bleachers, additional lighting, and fencing. He oversaw the construction of the Wiley Hollingsworth Gymnasium in 1966 and 67. the addition of a new lunchroom in 1973 and 74, remodeling of the old auditorium and gym into the school's current library in 1974 and 75, the air conditioning of classrooms in 1976 and 77, and the building of a tennis court in 1977. Caldwell Hollingsworth was instrumental in establishing such programs at Hubbertville as advanced placement and instruction in foreign languages and the higher sciences and mathematics. He helped to set up the high school's first computer lab. Under Caldwell Hollingsworth's leadership, Hubbertville High School became accredited by the Southern Association in 1969. The elementary school became accredited by the state of Alabama in 1974, and Hubbertville became accredited as a unit school, grades 1 through 12, by the Southern Association in 1974. After Caldwell Hollingsworth retired in 1990, he continued to be very active in the support of Hubbertville School. He also spent many hours working with the local Education Advancement Foundation, which contributes to the enhancement of the educational quality of students in all of Fayette County public schools. Caldwell Hollingsworth and his wife, Jo Nell, who taught home economics at Hubbertville from 1953 to 1989, devoted the main part of their lives to Hubbertville School. Both were known for their congenial, friendly attitudes and their willingness to help students as well as other people. Principals after Caldwell Hollingsworth were Stephen L. Whitson, who served from 1990 to 1993, and William Raymond Bill Carruthers, who served from 1993 to 1998. Dr. Isaac Espy came to Hubbertville as principal in July 1998. While Mr. Whitson was at Hubbertville, he established an elementary computer lab and computerized student grades and demographics. He worked with the community to build Hubbertville Community Park, which today provides lighted baseball fields for all ages, a walking trail, concession stand and restrooms, and a playground area. He expanded visitor seating of the football stadium and installed new metal poles for lights on the home side of the football field. He worked to implement tech prep classes at Hubbertville, and he encouraged technology and computer usage in the classrooms and library. He was the first principal in Fayette County schools to implement innovative approaches such as in-school suspension and after-school detention for disciplinary problems. Mr. Carruthers established a new high school computer lab and helped to set up a right-to-read lab for kindergarten through second grade students. He raised funds through donations to construct a dressing room at the football stadium for use by visiting teams. He also moved the elementary playground equipment to the Hubbertville Community Park and added new playground equipment. A new geothermal heating and cooling system was installed by the county board and was ready for use in fall of 1996. The progress of Hubbertville School has been directly related to the works of an outstanding PTA, which was first organized in the early years of the school, 1924. This organization has given major support to almost every project undertaken by the school. Without the dedicated work of the PTA, the program of Hubbertville School would have been greatly hampered. This PTA won the Most Outstanding Program Award at the 1983 State PTA Convention. Members voted some years later to change over to the PTO, but they are still just as active as ever.
Dr. Isaac Espy Jr. served as principal from 1998 to 2005. On October 14, 2001, the elementary gym/band room was open for classes. Again, the community stepped up and raised well over $60,000 to secure the building of this facility. This facility gave the elementary classes a permanent home for physical education. They no longer were required to share gym space with the high school students. The band was using one end of the football field house as their band room, so this facility afforded the band a permanent location. Superintendent Bobby Hathcock encouraged the construction of an open-aired building with meeting/dining room and kitchen accommodations. PSCA funding was secured through the assistance of Dr. Paul Ray Hubbard, former graduate of HHS. Dr. Hubbard secured enough funding to complete this project with no cost to the Fayette County Board of Education or to the community. The building was dedicated and named in honor of Dr. Hubbard. The Paul Hubbard Pavilion was completed on June 3, 2002. Building construction committee members were Lamar Harris, Rodney Markham, and Retta Tucker. A community enhancement grant was also received during this time frame. County Commissioner Hank Rutledge, a former HHS graduate, assisted in soliciting funding of this grant. These funds were used to replace the light poles and lighting on the youth and high school football fields, to purchase equipment, tables and chairs for the Paul Hubbard Pavilion, and also to replace the bleachers and flooring in the high school gym. Again, these improvements were made to our school campus at no cost to the Fayette County Board of Education. Morris Moore served as principal from 2005 to 2006. Mr. Tim Donovan, a graduate of HHS, was hired as administrator in August of 2006. In 2006, Access was incorporated into our students' schedules. Through modern technology, this program allows students to take classes that are not offered on our campus. In the fall of 2006, Pre-K was established on campus. Pre-K became a federally funded program on our campus. In 2011, an outdoor classroom was constructed for the enjoyment of all grade levels. In the spring of 2014, the baseball team was reestablished with Lamar Harris coaching. Coach Harris turned the Lady Lions softball program over to Chastity Tucker, also a former HHS graduate. In the fall of 2014, Coach Lamar Harris led the football team to the state finals in Auburn. This was the first time in school history with this system of high school playoffs. Coach Chastity Tucker led the 2014 Lady Lions softball team to regional play in Tuscaloosa, the first appearance since 2009. Principal Donovan purchased properties from Mr. Steve McCaleb, former HHS graduate, teacher, and coach, in October of 2014 to enlarge the school campus and to erect a baseball field. Again, this purchase was done with no cost to the Fayette County Board of Education. Athletics has been a vital part of our school community and has been quite successful over the decades. The football teams have won area titles in 1985, 1989, 1991, 1993, 1995, and won the Northwest Alabama Conference Championship in 1991, 2013, and 2014. The 2014 football team went undefeated, won the region title, and advanced to the state finals. The boys basketball team won area titles in 1986 to 87, 1992 to 93, 1998 to 99, 2000 to 2001, and 2001 to 2002, and won the Northwest Alabama Conference Championship in 1984 to 85, 1986 to 87, and 1995 to 96, and 2001 to 2002. The Lady Lions basketball team won state titles in 1980 and 1989, and were area champions in 1980, 1988, 1989, 1990, 1993, 1994, 1996, 2007, 2008, 2009, and 2010. The Lady Lions basketball team earned the Northwest Alabama Conference title in 1980, 1985, 1989, 1991, 1992, and 2009. The Lady Lions advanced to the regional tournament in 2007, 2008, and 2009. The Lady Lions softball team earned multiple titles over the years. The slow pitch softball teams won state championships for 3 consecutive years in 1989, 90, and 91, and were runner-up in 1987 and 1996. The softball program changed to fast pitch in 2002. The 2002 Lady Lions softball team were crowned sectional champions and were the 2005 and 2006 teams. The 2006 Lady Lions softball team won 29 consecutive games with a 32-4 overall record. Softball teams won conference championships in 2006, 2007, and 2009, as well as area champions in 2007, 2008, and 2009. The Lady Lions softball teams participated in the state tournament in 2007 and 2008. The 2015 team participated in the state regional tournament. The pride and determination of our founding community leaders has been passed down throughout the decades. The Hubbertville community has been the backbone of support for the growth and sustained success of our campus, our students, and our extracurricular programs, and can rightfully feel proud about the quality of programs afforded to the students of Hubbertville today.